For this recipe, we will need a pound of baby bok chow, a package of ramen noodles, 4 garlic cloves, 4 ounces of shiitake mushrooms, fresh ginger root, a red onion, fish sauce, low-sodium soy sauce, and chili garlic sauce. We will also need a pound of chicken thighs and a quart of low-sodium chicken broth. For toppings, green onions and cilantro are used. Measure out 16 ounces of chicken thighs, taking care to remove excess fat as you go along. It is okay to be slightly over or under 16 ounces. After you have finished measuring, place the chicken into the crock pot. After you have placed the chicken in the crock pot, take your low-sodium chicken broth and pour in 1 quart of it. After you have finished pouring it in, set the crock pot on high and let it cook for 3 hours. In this, I made a slight mistake and used an Instapot instead. As such, I had to transfer it into a crock pot. This is okay, and does not affect the cooking process in any significant way. Now it is time to finely dice the onions. For this recipe, we'll be using about half of the red onion that we had earlier. I've already peeled it, so all we have to do is cut it now. Now we need to grate a tablespoon of fresh ginger root. This can be difficult, but trust me, it's worth it. Cut the baby bok chow in half long ways. Next, place the half face first down onto the cutting board. Cut the half into quarters long ways. After you've done that, make large cuts horizontally on the baby bok chow, leaves included. Now, it's time to cut up those mushrooms. Start by cutting the mushroom top up finely, cutting around the stem. After you've cut the stem out of the top, or cap as you will, it's time to cut the stem up into smaller pieces. Repeat this process for the other mushrooms. Now that we've finished cutting up the mushrooms, let's take a look at the chicken. Doesn't that look just delicious? It's already starting to break down. I'm going to start taking this out as it looks just about done. Really should be using a pasta fork or something of that sort to scoop it out better. But these 2 forks will have to do. So I'm going to start explaining the science behind this. The muscle fibers in the chicken have started to break down due to the heat. The denaturization of collagen is a kinetic process, meaning that the temperature and duration of heating affects the process. Denaturization, in simple terms, is a process in which proteins and nucleic acid lose their structures and thus the properties generated from these 3-dimensional structures. At 120 degrees Fahrenheit, the meat starts to get a white opacity as the myosin denatures. At 140 degrees, the red myoglobin begins to denature into a tan-colored hemochrome. This causes the meat to turn from pink to a gray-brown color. Once we reach 160 degrees, the connective collagen begins to dissolve into gelatin. This causes the meat to fall apart. This process begins to accelerate to a rapid pace at 180 degrees. Moving on, we're going to start working on the broth. Start by putting the onions into the pot. You're going to cook them for about 5 minutes with a little oil, allowing them to brown. What we're doing here is called caramelization, a type of pyrolysis, which is decomposition brought on by high temperatures. This process will produce diacetyl, which gives it that caramel taste, and also has a bit of part to the actual color of it. After adding the shiitake mushrooms and a little more oil, stir around and keep it from burning. Do this until it's softened. This should take about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, add the garlic and the freshly grated ginger root and stir fry for 30 seconds. Now, it's time to add in the chicken broth that we used to cook the chicken thighs in. This is the main base of the soup. Some parts can be left over from the chicken, which we're going to be adding more chicken in anyway, but if you don't want the fatty stuff, you can use a spatula to keep it from getting into the soup. That's what I did. Add in 1/4 of a cup of low-sodium soy sauce. Next, add in 1/4 of a cup of rice vinegar. Now, add in that tablespoon of chili garlic sauce. Next, add in the pulled chicken from earlier. Now, it's time to add the pulled chicken thighs from earlier into the soup. Pour in a cup of water. Now, it is time to add in the final ingredient. Grab the bowl of baby bok chow that you sliced up earlier and scoop all of it into the pot. Stir on medium heat for 5 to 10 minutes. The baby bok chow should become soft, and stirring the broth should be fairly simple, and should not offer much resistance at this point. Take off heat and get ready to serve with noodles. After bringing the quart of water to a boil, place one of the packages of ramen noodles into the water. Let it cook for 4 minutes, stirring occasionally. After the 4 minutes are up, take the noodles out and set them on a plate. Dump out the remaining water and use fresh water for the next batch. The heat and moisture from the water causes the starch molecules to start to loosen and break down, turning into a gelatin-like substance.